Ari, I am very jealous of you. You are going to the Rose Bowl.
Because of the game or the weather or the food?
I live in Florida. The weather's perfect in the winter. Like that,
Yeah.
we don't get jealous of their weather.
That's true.
But
well,
I'm very jealous of the game. Very jealous of the game.
And the food in the mountains.
I don't care about the mountains turning purple. I mean, I've seen it. It's nice. It's beautiful.
Are you one of the Rose Bowl's overrated people?
No, I think it's accurately rated. I think when you go, you're like, oh, I just want to touch the grass. It's gorgeous. But the game in the Rose Bowl is what excites me. And look, I was at last year's Rose Bowl. Alabama-Michigan was a fantastic game. It ends in overtime. Obviously, the stakes were massive. It was Nick Saban's last game, and we didn't know it. But this Oregon-Ohio State rematch in the Rose Bowl is very exciting because it was one of the best games that was played all season. I mean, it's funny because Oregon beat Ohio State. We were like, Oregon won. Looking back over that game, 32-31, both quarterbacks were lighting it up through the air. It ends with the crazy clock mismanagement by Ohio State. I think Will Howard would love to have that back. You had the offensive pass interference on Jeremiah Smith. Like, this was an incredible game. It was actually the game also where we realized what Dylan Gabriel could do in Oregon's offense.
I know you called up the stats for this game just now.
Yeah.
It's been a while since you looked at them. Look at them real quick. They're dead even in every category.
Yes.
Rushing yards, passing yards, first downs, time of possession, everything. It was the same. They played the same game.
Yeah. It was awesome.
So, and I think that at the time, I viewed that as a game between the two best teams in college football. That was kind of a saucy take in the moment because, Georgia and Alabama and stuff hadn't, slipped up in the ways that they did later on in the season. But I do question whether that game is between two of the best teams or the two best teams.
It might be.
I think there is some sentiment that this is the national title game. I think that that's wrong in this era.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that that's the way to view it.
Because you can run into Texas or Georgia or Notre Dame or Penn State later. Like, no, this isn't the national title game.
This isn't Ohio State, Georgia from 2 years ago.
Yes.
With TCU waiting on the other bracket. There's a long, very staunch bracket ahead. But I do think that in terms of, earning your keep and getting to a place where you can be a national champion level team, like having to win a game like this is exactly what, the sport is designed to do. So I think that as we go through and we analyze the first round of that playoff and the fact that all 4 games were blowouts, I think that the good thing that we all can take solace in is that the next round is going to shape up. And for the most part, I know, there's some teams in there that got some buys.
We can quibble with the seeding later because you've already heard all that. But this game is spectacular.
And this game wouldn't have existed in the 14 field.
Right.
So, that to me, is one of the highlights of this. And, having Ohio State playing its best game of the year and really the only game that came close to resembling the way they played at Oregon. I think that it hypes up because I do believe that Oregon has earned the respect and the view of being the most complete team in college football this year because they're the only ones that doesn't have a terrible blunder.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't lost a game. They are very talented. They are explosive offensively. Their defense is very good. They have a lot to like. So, I know that Ohio State comes into this game as a 2.5 point favorite. I think it opened at 1.5, and I understand why. I think it's hard to beat the same team twice. But Oregon is really, really let's not get blinded in the Ohio State looked awesome.
Well, and remember that the thing that happened at the end of the game in Eugene that has affected Ohio State since is Josh Simmons going down, their left tackle. And then they lose Seth McLaughlin the week of the Indiana game, their starting center. And that has been the adjustment period. And, we talk about, it's great that you got the bye or did you have to play in the conference championship game? This actually probably works out perfectly for both teams because Oregon probably needed the rest after a tough conference championship game against Penn State. This video is brought to you by Axia Time. I am wearing my Axia Odysseus watch. It is tremendous, Swiss-made, automatic, beautiful, but at a price that you will not believe. Because if you've shop these types of watches, if you shopped something that is of this quality, that's built this well, you're not going to believe it. Also, they're the official timepiece of the college football playoff and the Heisman Trophy. And if you really want something special, then get an Axia watch to commemorate your team's trip to the college football playoff. They have watches for every team in the college football playoff, limited to 100 pieces. They're on sale now. AxiaTime.com is where you go to find those watches. I'm looking at the Arizona State one right now, looking at the Boise State one. They're gorgeous. So if you want to commemorate your team's trip to the college football playoff, go to AxiaTime.com, and everybody will be asking, ooh, where'd you get that watch? Ohio State probably needed another game because they weren't playing in the conference championship game, but probably needed another game to figure out their offensive line situation, get what worked best. They're still rotating guards. And, you heard Chip Kelly and Ryan Day say after the game, hey, when you don't notice the guards during the game, things are going pretty well.
Yeah, because I noticed it on the third play of the game, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. But that team that Ohio State fielded is really, really good, and really the only version of Ohio State that's equipped to even compete with Oregon. So the fact that they found themselves, it seemed pretty hard to predict or believe that could even happen going into the game, considering the place they were in, heading into the game. But now that it feels like they're there and vibes are back and they're throwing to Jeremiah Smith, you put yourself in a position to win that game. So what I'll say is, I know that I'm not one of these people who's precious about college football tradition or how things have to stay the same.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that Ohio State and Oregon are playing in the Rose
Bowl. Well, you're getting a real Rose Bowl.
Yeah,
you're getting a Big Ten team against a Pac-10 team.
And it's a Pac-10 team and a Big Ten team, at least until this all feels normal in 10 years. But for now, that is, I've covered a few Rose Bowls in my life, but the first Rose Bowl I ever covered was the Ohio State-Oregon Terrell Pryor game.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm going back in time, and it's just these two teams both being very good, playing in a Rose Bowl that actually has stakes in terms of advancing.
Yeah.
I think that this is kind of college football nirvana from my point of view. So,
well, and I'm looking at the player matchups and Jeremiah Smith, I was going to ask you, do we think he's leveled up? And then I went back and looked at the stats from the Oregon game. He had 9 catches for 100 yards. With a touchdown. He was pretty leveled up that game, too.
I think leveling up only at this point with him isn't about how good he is. I think it's about getting enough performances under his belt where you can start saying hyperbolic things without them sounding hyperbolic anymore.
Right.
And
we've been hearing hyperbolic things about him since spring practice.
And it's
and they're all true.
But they weren't hyperbolic in spring practice. They were real then. But they are so unbelievable that they seem hyperbolic. But I think that we talked about this yesterday. I think he would be a starter in the NFL right now.
The passing game for both these teams was so on point in that game. I just mentioned Jeremiah Smith's stats. Emeka Buka caught 10 balls for 93 yards in that game. Evan Stewart for Oregon caught 7 balls for 149 yards. Tez Johnson 7 for 75. They were just dealing. Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard were dealing in that game. And I think, Dylan Gabriel we've seen play a lot of huge games over the years. Will Howard, I think there was some doubt with him coming from Kansas State. That game last night against Tennessee, some of those balls he threw, the second touchdown to Jeremiah Smith is one of the prettiest throws you will ever see.
Yeah. I think that the doubt was warranted. I mean, I think he played his worst game at Ohio State against Michigan. But
Correct.
The thing that I will, looking at these stats here, Andy, is, there's a lot made of Ohio State's receiving room, and rightfully so. There's another team in this country that has a receiving room that's nearly as good, and that's Oregon.
Yeah.
Evan Stewart's a stud. Tez Johnson is a stud. They've got dudes. So, I really, in terms of predictions, 12 hours after Ohio State won, I don't know. I think that either team can win this game. And I think that, and we'll break it down extensively on the show, most intriguing second-round game to me.
Absolutely.
Well, no, Notre Dame and Georgia.
That's pretty good, too. Yeah. We will have a video about that as well today, so stay tuned to the On3 Sports YouTube channel. But, yeah, I'm excited about this one. I'm thinking about Ohio State's defense against Tennessee. They are going to be much more challenging against Oregon. Obviously, they've already seen them, so they understand the challenge. But there were those moments where Nico Iamaleava dropped back last night, and he was just in hell. There was nobody open. That's not going to be the case for Dylan Gabriel.
And it's a lot easier to look good on a defensive line when people can't get open. And, this isn't a Tennessee video, but Tennessee has a stark deficiency at the receiver room.
Right.
So they
Oregon does not.
And
so Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom, all the guys at Ohio State who are going to be asked to cover people who are really good. Get ready.
Yeah. And, Oregon, fresh, ready, tan, rested and ready. You know, I think it's going to be great, and I can't wait to get out to LA. I can't wait to watch this game, and you know, I think that if either of these teams go on to win the national championship, they will have done so having earned it more maybe than anybody else in the past. So super excited, and you know, please stay tuned with the show too, Andy, because I think we have a lot to unpack.
Oh, so much.
Week. I mean, we did a 40-minute Ohio State video from Ohio Stadium after the game, and I don't even feel like we scratched the surface.
Barely,
that. So,
barely.
And you know, we both wrote columns and about the same person, and they're both very different. So, very excited. And of course, Dan Lanning, you know, future king of the sport, maybe already arriving there.
Well, that's the thing. We find out, and all the Ryan Day angst, agita, whatever you want to call it. Now he's got to go against the guy who's the golden child, who everybody thinks is going to be the next Nick Saban, next Kirby
Ryan
Smart.
Day from 3 years ago.
Yep, because it can change
It
just
does
like
change.
that. And Ryan Day can be back on that one. You never know.